Hello, today we are going to be talking about the substitution method. All right, the substitution method is a way to change two equations with two variables into one equation with one variable. So we know how to solve one equation with one variable. That's how we know how to solve. So when we have two equations that have two variables, we have to be able to combine them in some way to get just one variable so we can solve. It's really convenient to use this in the specific case of when one equation already has a solved for variable. And what I mean for that, solved for, as a reminder, when we say a solved for variable, what we're talking about is when a variable is alone on one side of the equal sign. Like here. So we know this is a good candidate for substitution because that x is all alone on one side of the equal sign, which means it's solved for. We've solved for x right here. All right. This is perfect because I know what x is. What do I mean by that? I mean, I know that x is negative 3y plus 1. That is how much x is. That's what x's value is. And even though there's a variable in that value, we can still use that to do substitution with, like this. So we use substitution to rewrite the two equations as one. In other words, we're going to replace x in the second equation with this because x is negative 3y plus 1 from the first equation. So we're going to plug it in right there. And I think this is a better understandable way of saying this. So what used to be here was that x. So we used to have 4x, right? Now we're taking the x out and we're replacing it with what x is worth, which is negative 3y plus 1. So that's what we're going to put in here, negative 3y plus 1, which is where this comes from, because that's what this is. Okay, so we replaced that x with negative 3y plus 1. And now we have one equation, and there's only the y variable in this equation, so I can solve for it. And that's what we're going to do right now. So right here, I see that I have a 4 outside a parenthesis set with addition. So I'm going to distribute that 4, and let's do it in a different color. So I'm going to distribute that 4. I'm going to get negative 12y plus 4 minus 3y equals negative 11. I'm going to combine like terms, and negative 12y and the negative 3y is negative 15y plus 4 equals negative 11. I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. Negative 15y equals negative 15. I'm going to divide by negative 15 on both sides to get that y alone. Negative 15 divided by negative 15 is 1. So I can put that in here. In this case, y is 1. But we're not finished yet because in the original equation, I have x values and y values. Right now, I only know what y is, but I still need to figure out what x is. If I know what y is, it gets a little bit easier. So to determine the solution to the system, we're going to substitute the value you found, y equals 1, into either original equation to calculate the other value. So we're going to substitute y equals 1, and they're going to have a substitute into the first equation. We could do it for either one. We could substitute into this equation or this equation. This one's a little bit easier though, because when I plug in y equals 1 right here, I don't have to do any adding and subtracting or multiplying and dividing on both sides because x is already solved for. Here, if I plug in y is 1, I would have to add 3 to both sides, divide by 4. It's a little bit messier. So this first one's a little less messy, which is why we're using it. So here I go. I have x equals negative 3y plus 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in y equals 1 into that y value right there. Okay? And I'm going to get x equals -3 times 1 plus 1, which gets me -3 plus 1, which gets me -2. Perfect. It says then write your answer for x and y as an ordered pair. This is really important. Just finding these answers is not enough. You have to put them in as a coordinate pair. So I've got one of my answers right here. I've got my other answer there. I've got to put them in as a coordinate pair, x, y. So my final answer is going to be -2, 1. There's my coordinate pair. Now you're not quite done yet, because in order for us to really know that we did this right, you always need to check your solution. So we're going to substitute the x and y into both of the original equations. So looking at my original equations, I have x equals -3y plus 1. I'm going to plug in my x and y to them. -2 equals -3 times 1 plus 1. And I get -2 equals -2. Check. This one works. But that's only one of my equations. I have to do it for both to make sure it works in both. So I have to look at my other original equation. 4x minus 3y equals -11. And I'm going to plug in, again, my x and y into here. 4 times -2 minus 3 times 1 equals -11. 4 times -2 is -8. -3 times 1 is -3. And -8 minus -3 is, in fact, -11. Check. So I did my check. It works in both equations. So this is my final answer. All right. Thank you so much. Have